We know the story of Louis XIV, 1638 to 1715, known as the Sun King, was the King of France and Navarre from 1643 until his death. His 72-year reign is the longest of any monarch in European history, and marked the peak of absolutist rule in France. He became king at 4 years old and known as the person who transformed Versailles into a magnificent palace. King Louis XIV of France married Maria Theresa of Austria in 1660 as part of the Treaty of the Pyrenees, which ended a war between France and Spain. Although the treaty required Maria Theresa to renounce her claim to the Spanish throne for a dowry that was never fully paid, Louis XIV later used the unpaid dowry as a justification to claim Spanish territory. Maria Therese, described as timid and pious, lived a reserved life at court and suffered Louis XIV's numerous infidelities, though he maintained her royal status. She had multiple children with him. But do you know the story of King Louis XIV's mysterious black daughter with his wife? Meet Louise Marie-Thérèse. Louise Marie-Thérèse, also known as the Black Nun of Moret-Sur-Loing and Mooress of Moret, was a black nun during the time of King Louis XIV of France. Her story is woven with intrigue, rumor, and royal scandal, and continues to captivate historians and storytellers alike. It all began when King Louis XIV's wife, Queen Maria Theresa of Spain, gave birth to a baby girl on November 16, 1664. The child, Marie-Anne, was born prematurely and did not survive. As was the custom of the day, many French nobles were present for the birth, and so the baby was seen by many eyes. She was reportedly black, although the palace claimed she was purple-black due to lack of oxygen. The palace held a funeral for Marie-Anne, as they had done 2 years earlier with the king and queen's previous baby girl who died after birth. Rumors spread around the palace that after seeing the child was black, the king's first valet, Monsieur Alexandre Bontemps, took the child to a convent where she later became a nun in 1695. But then who was the child's father? The rumor is that it was Nabo, an African dwarf who was the queen's servant. Having an African dwarf was, at the time, very common for white women of means. They were a status symbol and someone to show off. Nabo was often dressed in lavish African costume and covered in jewels. The king's own top mistress, Madame de Montespan, gave him a ruby and diamond encrusted aigrette to show her respect to the queen. However, the king hated Nabo. Nabo often played tricks on people at the palace and would lift up the queen's skirt and run under it, as well as yank on it to make her stop short or trip. The queen found him amusing and doted on him quite excessively, even letting him sit in her lap in front of company. When the baby was born, the king was distraught and furious. The queen explained the premature baby's death away by saying that soon after she became pregnant, Nabo jumped out at her from behind a piece of furniture and gave her a fright. The king sent for Nabo, and he was sent away never to be seen again. The baby was sent to be breastfed by a black wet nurse. The queen was in a miserable state, explained by the palace to be in mourning for her dead daughter. The nun is convinced of her royal lineage, but at different times she claimed either the king or queen, or both, were her parents. This is why she took the name Louise Marie-Thérèse as a nun, a combination of the king and queen's names. She never wavered, and even referred to the Dauphin, Louis, the Grand Dauphin, heir to the French throne and the eldest son of the king and queen, as her brother, which scandalized nobles who visited the convent. The queen herself visited the convent frequently and ensured Louise Marie-Thérèse was well cared for. There are rumors that she lived quite lavishly, especially for a nun, and double especially for a nun of color. However, she was not content, and would often visit Versailles unannounced, asking to speak with her father, the king. What is special about this particular bit of information is that she was never punished for such imprudent behavior as anyone else would have been. After the queen's death, Madame de Maintenon was the king's top mistress at the time, and he later married her in a secret ceremony, becoming his morganatic wife. Madame de Maintenon often visited the nun and also looked after her care. She also made a strange visit to the nun, trying to convince her she was not royal, to which the nun responded, "Madame, the trouble which a lady of your station takes to purposely come here in order to tell me that I am not a daughter of the king persuades me that I am." Louise Marie-Thérèse sadly passed in 1732. The famous portrait of the nun now hangs in the Bibliothèque Sainte-Geneviève in Paris. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more unpopular Black history.